This is our documentation and walkthrough of the virtual reality experience GriefVR. The experience itself is a very rough prototype made for the Rites of Passage elective for the Hochschule Darmstadt. As the title suggests, the user is confronted with grief, especially with the 5 stages of grief that are formally known as denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. We put all of these into a virtual reality experience, and I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the design process. While you see the footage of the experience in the background. You start your journey inside this forest. We chose to do that to calm the user down a bit, to bring them on a relaxing level and maybe get rid of all the hype that they might have felt because they have put on a VR headset for the first time. It is important to be in a calm state when entering this experience because it deals with a rather complicated topic. This forest is again meant to calm you down. You can walk around, you can look around, but there are no real interactions possible. It is by choice sparsely populated with plants, especially with ground plants. The reason for that you will see at a later time. In this forest you have some stones laying around. Some of these stones are gravestones, meant to put down the mood even more and add a little bit of nostalgia to the mix. So you realize you're not just in a beautiful forest, but actually in some sort of old overgrown graveyard perhaps. When you feel you are ready, you can progress to the next stage, which is anger. We left out the stage of denial because it was a little bit too complicated and time-intensive to execute. The idea here is that over time and the more you move around, the brighter this flame will get. And it will eventually reach a searing brightness around you that is actually not very pleasant to look at if you stay in it for too long. The way you solve all these stages is obviously by not giving in to them. So if you remain calm in the stage of anger, and you accept that anger is a part of you, you will solve this stage. Next up is the stage of bargaining. Here we had an interesting interaction planned, but unfortunately due to time restrictions we couldn't implement it. So instead, this stage is again more of a reset. You find yourself floating in space. You cannot move. You can look around, but you cannot teleport or move in any direction. And it's just meant to calm you down a bit more again after this anger stage and give you something rather beautiful to look at. Especially since VR is really good at that, we chose something vast, something that makes you feel otherworldly in a way. And so space was the obvious theme to go for in this case. Then we switch to stage 4, which is depression. Depression is often being described as feeling like you're drowning by people who are depressed. And so we chose that image of drowning and put it in our experience. What's interesting here is that you are very close underneath the surface of the water. You can look around here, but if you stretch yourself out just enough, maybe you are able to peek out of the water and start to swim. This is really something where you have to either stretch yourself or even perhaps stand on something elevated, like a chair or something a bit smaller. This really gives you the feeling like you are drowning, because you have to raise your chin up high in order to see what's around you. What is around you is another forest. Perhaps you have already noticed that we are in the same forest as before. We are in the small pond that we saw previously. However, in this case, the forest looks much denser populated, as you can already see by the leaves flying down from the sky, falling from the trees, as well as just the population of plants here. Over each stone, you notice this sphere that is glowing and hovering. As you approach them, you will hear a person talk about something that they grieve about.
My whole life I had been fond of cars. I played with them as a child. I got my driver's license as early as possible and watched professional races on TV as often as I could. But sometimes life has a cruel sense of humor. After I got in a car accident, I lost the ability to walk and of course drive. In the beginning this hit me really hard, but over the years I realized that you find joy only in what you spend time in. And since I didn't spend my time with cars anymore, my joy went elsewhere. I discovered the violin, and I am more excited than ever to develop a career, this time as a musician.
Some time ago, I was heavily in love. I was sure I had found the one. I imagined a future for the both of us and pictured the life we would live. It was full of experiences, things and events. Unfortunately, it was also full of illusions. It turned out that our imaginations of the future drifted apart. It turned out that I was the only one seeing both of us the way I did. Somewhere along the way we had lost our connection. A connection we were not able to get back. Hurt feelings, egos, other persons got in between. I had to learn how to let go of someone I considered the center of my life. It was hard, really hard. But in the middle of all the pain, I can now see a few things very clearly. Learnings for my life. I have learned about myself and about love, and I can tell you that there is a silver lining. I am happier than I was before or within that relationship. I share my life with an incredible soulmate now. Some time ago, I was heavily in love.
My grandfather always told me to only do what brings joy. I try to live by that rule since he passed away. It is a piece of him that I am always carrying with me, and it led me to great places, fantastic people, and true moments of peace. For that, I will always be grateful. I miss him, I really do. but I'm sure he would be proud of me. And when I die, I can tell him all about how he changed my life, even in death.
For us here, it was especially important that we do not neglect the pain that people had, but rather focus on the more positive aspects of remembering someone or something, and trying to accept that things will always come and go. That's why this forest is also much more beautiful, to reflect the growth of character inside the forest itself, and to make you even more comfortable in it.
When I was younger, I read many books about the great men of history. I was inspired by them, how one individual could shape the course of history. I dreamt of being such an individual myself. Back then, I wanted to become a politician. But well, life got in the way. Now, I'm an accountant for a small law firm in a big city. I make good money, but no difference to the world. In the end, you learn to appreciate the dreams you had. And if you don't think bad of them, they can still give you happy nostalgia.
After the forest, we go to one final scene. This is not a representation of any stage of grief. Rather, this is meant for you to reflect on yourself. While you've heard the fate of other people in the previous scene, we wanted to give you something with little distraction. A beautiful place, a place where you can look inwards. That's why you only have the sun, a very reflective body of water, and the sky in this scene. Reflect on who you are, what you are in the greater scale of things, and what is important to you. How can you overcome your grief? Maybe this experience has helped you a little bit or shared an interesting insight. Again, this was just a prototype. I want to thank my colleagues and professors for helping us create this little demo experience, and of course thanks to the Hochschule Darmstadt for providing us with the locations and equipment. Thank you for being here.